Welcome to What If God is Actually Listening? I'm Michelle Wargo. Today, joining me is Erin Geddes. From the world of constructing creative advertising visuals, Erin Geddes sees life differently, and she thinks that's okay. Her children see the world differently, and that's okay. Her mission is to support kids, families, and public communities to be okay with viewing the world just a little bit differently, as it's what gives us reasons to celebrate. Her children's book, And That's Okay, I'm Wired Differently, celebrates the vibrant, silent world of neurodivergent kids and their families. Erin enjoys fine woodworking, photography, and many other creative mediums the wind may blow her to while living in the Midwest. Very creative, very interesting. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, you yourself have a very interesting journey. Um, I know that it led you to be the author of this book, but tell us a little bit about your background and
Well, I grew up in San Diego County and spent 24 years in the same house and the same bedroom as an only child.
hmm.
Um, I was kind of that child who seemed to dance to the beat of a different drum,
Okay.
where I I I struggled with friends. Now, did I had kids I played with? Yes. But when it came to other peers in school, I was often that outlier, the one who was not in the in crowd, would tried very hard to want to be, but very difficult with peers and getting along or building those outside maybe kids in the neighborhood.
So you were a little
um,
bit different and you weren't sure why, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, pretty much. I would actually be in high school. I was made fun of because I would use bigger words.
So that right there even made you stand out even more.
Yes, but still in the remedial classes. I was not in any of the advanced classes.
So they just didn't know what to do with you, basically.
Yes, I knew I was smart, but I struggled to really, well, why is that not seem to be reflected in my school grades, project stuff with academics?
hmm.
Things just didn't seem to click like it clicked for other kids.
So fast forward to college. When did it click in for you?
Oh boy, I think when I had professors that understood the type of student body, the type of creatives that they had as students, and they really gravitated towards our strengths. So here I was finally where I'm like, oh, they kind of get my brain, and I had a passion and I was just able to actually focus and take off. And
And what was
and
that
using my
passion?
strengths, the creativity, being a creative, coming up with ideas. I could get good grades in college. Even some of the general ed classes that are required, it was projects, it was more hands-on, it was collaborative.
And what sort of career did that lead you towards?
Well, I ended up majoring in advertising. But it was advertising that had the emphasis on marketing and graphic design, it was visual communication, copywriting.
And then you and I have spoken before, and you had shared a little bit about your journey through faith and how you were raised in a house that wasn't a religious household, but you sort of stumbled into faith. Would you mind sharing that journey?
Uh, it would be a fourth grade teacher of mine whose church had a inner city Easter camp that was put on by the high school department. It was a sleepaway camp, and the high schoolers were the counselors. And it was, here it is. You could go to a sleepaway camp for 25,
Wow.
which huge. I'd
You can't
never
even
been
get
to a
lunch for
sleepaway camp.
$25 now.
I know, I know. And it was a camp. It wasn't too terribly far, and that's where I went, and that's where I came to accept. Understanding what faith is was difficult, of just from what you see, you're told, well, if you're a Christian, you need to you're supposed to check these check marks off these boxes, or mark the boxes and check them. However that is put
Sure.
together.
There is a list
Uh,
of to-dos that
yes,
categorizes
like
you
you do
as a
this and this is
Christian.
what makes you that, and this is what
Got it.
makes your faith.
Right.
But it
But that's not
was
always true. That's what makes your religion. That's not what makes faith, you know?
exactly. Um, and just, but it wasn't until really in college where it was a big transition for me, in the sense of not knowing why, but after high school, I kind of felt like this shroud, this blanket was being lifted, and I was kind of rediscovering kind of who I was, my personality of when I was 5, where
Mm.
there's just things you didn't care about what other people thought, and you were just you without all these other influencing or trying to fit in, because you did not, to fear of being called out or teased, or high school can just be brutal. um
Middle school, elementary school, high school, all difficult.
yes, yes, but after there, where it was just like, what am I doing? I kind of had, growing up, I had to grow up a lot faster than a lot of my peers, and that took, so it's like, all right, did this, like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get married? Not that I had anyone really. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of,
So you found yourself sort of reevaluating your life and who you are within this world and decided to have your moment with God, right? To have your conversations and to say, what is it? What am I doing here?
yeah. Through a core group of girls that we had, was called accountability group, and we met like twice a month at someone's house on a Friday afternoon with snacks, and we just, what we're reading in a Bible, and sharing. But it was just kind of that of a connection. And through one of the girls' mom, who were connected to the church, who was the church that had done the Easter camp, I just, at one point, I kind of just, her daughter was on the way home, and I arrived there early and talking, and I ended up just kind of breaking down on her counter, and I didn't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? And so she was able to, through the church, um, they had a partnership with a biblical counselor, professional biblical counselor, and through the church subsidizing, and rare, I think I saw a biblical counselor for about a semester. $5 a session. You're a college student, I could swing that. And we just really unfolded a lot about faith, um, where I came, what is faith, what is religion, what is spiritual, um, especially for someone who did not grow up having any idea who their father was, and didn't have a grandfather of any sort, of, well, what it is to have a personal relationship with God.
Mhm.
She had asked me at one point, and said, well, do you feel his presence? And I go, well, I feel the couch I'm sitting on. But,
And she's like,
I just,
I mean, metaphorically.
yeah, it just, I couldn't, I just, it was very foreign. And I was very much just still kind of chase, will I ever find out who's this other part of me genetically? Because it was through the fertility method of my mom using a anonymous donor through a clinic. she had signed any rights for me to know who they were,
Mm.
or even for them, if they decided later to want to reach out, they couldn't either.
Oh, wow. So you're at a moment in life wondering, number one, who am I? Right? Because you don't know where you came from. You just know one side of it, your mom's side. Um, and then you're finding faith and wondering, well, what does it mean? How did you work through that to then become a preacher is what or a counselor of your own for children? I'm trying to connect the dots for me. How did you go from no faith to then, helping others find faith?
Well, the having that semester with the biblical counselor was really, really beneficial because it helped us kind of go through and really discover what it was. And when I was going to the college, I was getting kind of to this point where maybe about the midway point where I was kind of seeing, well, what does it take to be successful in the advertising world? Climbing the corporate ladder, what does it take? And I was having some very, very big, uh, just some doubt. I was just like, oh man, like this just, do I really want to feed into this?
Yeah.
Feeling just really convicted and discouraged. Can I do this? Is this just personally just, is this the be all end all?
Right.
It ended up being when I'd gotten connected through the church that they'd gone to, and they had a college group. And there was a like 24-hour little mission trip going to down into Mexico where we would work with a ministry that would build houses. But we would get there the night before, and then in the morning, there was a message that was given before we would all go out in our teams and go out and do the construction work. And during what the speaker was telling, I had very much where there was no question that God was speaking to me. And he had said, I want to use your gifts in ministry. I mean, emotions are complicated for me because complicate emotions can be extremely strong. So if I'm going to get a response to something, sometimes it's really delayed, and when it hits you like a truck.
Okay.
Uh, and when, I mean, this point, I was crying, like just there in the service, the message, and it was just that breath of like, now I felt like I had a true calling of what I was to do, and that renewed me and what I was supposed to do while I finished the other half of my time for my degree, and what I then focused with in my campaigns. And all right, what do I do? I can use this in a different way than what college is saying, that you go to an ad agency, uh, or you're just like, okay, now I know where to focus. And it was encouraging. It gave me that umph, that pick of, all right, I can do this. You know,
That's incredible.
a recharging of just keeping at when college was still difficult because of other things going on in my life, personally and socially, and stuff going on at home.
So you had this powerful moment where you felt redirected by God.
Yes, very much. And there's a few, I maybe on about one hand or so of time when I can, without a doubt, knowing that God was speaking to me of what it is something was to be. And that was the first time I ever experienced that.
Just talking about it is giving me goosebumps. Like it's when you have those moments, it's all encompassing, right? It's like you're there but you're not there, and it's like a surge of energy, and it's just for people who haven't had a moment like that, how would you describe it?
It's as if you are not an out of body experience, but as if you were quickly transported and picked up on top of a mountain, and just everything becomes clear that this is what you can see and this is what you're supposed to do.
So you're doing youth ministry and you during this time, right? Then you find your husband, you fall in love, you have a couple kids, and you're out mowing the lawn and then inspiration strikes again, right?
Well, it's not so much inspiration strikes again. So at that point, when I was mowing the lawn, so background though of kind of being that different kid who was quirky, I was loud, I was a hot mess, you could say, in all, yeah, in all purposes. But as time and growing up and everything in my life, um, when we had gotten married, about just before we were married for a year, just things that I was still struggling with, and it ended up being that I would be diagnosed as with ADHD,
Mm.
and going, oh, okay, that explains that explains a lot, looking in hindsight. Um,
The chasing of
and
dopamine.
yes, exactly. So that explained a good chunk of some things, that it was going on. And, of course, but I'm getting this diagnosis right at the time when we're transitioning to find out, oh, hey, I am going to be, we're then have 3 weeks to move to across the country from the Pacific Northwest to the Northeast in New York, in central New York, for a youth director, youth ministry position for me.
Oh wow.
And talk about big transitions right there.
Yep.
Um, but it was very hard emotionally, spiritually, but also in my position and just adjusting to a different culture, different mindset of everything. And that was very difficult. And there were things that I was trying my hardest, and yet it wasn't good enough. And I just couldn't understand why this is so hard for me. Like, what am I doing wrong? My heart was never of ill intent, but my actions or saying, or it wasn't right. It was wrong. It was there, and I wasn't reading social cues. And people would think that I was doing it purposely, and it was not. Um, so there is like, I have grown up a lot of times feeling like I'm a Phillips head in a flathead world. I can do things like that other people can do, but I have to do it differently. I have to go about it. I need an adapter, but I can still build, but I just build differently. Or I've got a wonderful shirt that says, I feel like I'm diagonally parked in a parallel universe.
I love it.
It was just very, very fitting.
I'm
But
gonna look for that shirt. That sounds awesome.
yes, but it ends up where through a lot of from family of extended family and other diagnosis, and someone saying, hey, well, blah 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 blah, this also has a lot of similarities to autism with ADHD. And I'm like, well, if ADHD can manifest and exhibit differently in girls and women than it
Very
does in
much.
boys,
Mm.
then what is it like with autism? And I did a lot of research and reading, and here we are talking about one of those God moments, through the research and finding and list, and they had all these things that someone had compiled of those who had been diagnosed, and the pattern of similarities. And I'm going through and reading, and I'm reading it to my husband, and at the end, another of those things where I just sat back, and you hit you, and you just like, oh my goodness. I think I'm autistic. I then and talk about another thing of faith. You think of autism, but when you are a grown adult in your late 30s, just trying to find a provider to who does adult autism evaluation,
Jeez.
that is hard. That
Mm,
is very difficult because so much of the emphasis is on kids.
yep.
But the time of the age, I mean, there was just so much that was not the norm, wasn't known. So, a lot of us, if you could mask enough, you didn't have an intellectual disability, you kind of fell through the cracks.
100%. And for people that are watching or listening, masking is when you're, pretending to be like everybody else, pretty much. Like
You were playing a double agent.
yeah.
And, it works to a point when you're young, but as you get older, what used to work doesn't work anymore, and you're just getting exhausted and you're just wondering what is wrong with me, what is going on, why I used to be able to think I could handle this, but I can't anymore. ADHD or autism, these comorbidities, anxiety, depression, um, you know times of where you're manic in a way.
The hyper
And
focus.
yes.
Hmm.
And
And then also
when
the
people,
analysis paralysis where
yes,
you're just stuck
yes,
because your brain
people think
is
you're just stubborn, you're saying no. And that's when I really felt it was very important and very critical to push and to ask for to be evaluated. And the findings, it was confirmed um, that yes, I was indeed autistic, and that now beforehand they would say Asperger's, but
mm,
Asperger's has been done away with as far as clinically. It's now everything falls under the spectrum, the umbrella of autism. We interact, but we still, and this is where I say, I have like lower support needs. In other words, I still have needs. There are things that I still struggle with. There's something called most of the world has a from the top down processing. Well, when you're autistic, a lot of time you process from the bottom up
mm.
of how you approach problems and see things. We see patterns, and yeah, we're our nervous system is under extra stress because we are not even sometimes consciously absorbing a lot of
Yes.
information.
You're hyper aware of everything, but you don't even know
Everything,
that
but
you
we
are.
may not be thinking of it, but it's like when your computer and you're like, oh, but there's these apps going on in the background, but you don't see it. It's out of sight, out of mind. And then you wonder why you're so tired. It's because your system has been taking in a lot of input that you're not even aware of what's going
Well,
on
yeah, it could
until
just be this, the tag on my shirt has been driving me crazy all day. So that's like one level, right? And then you hear there's constant noise, somebody's being loud, when then you can't regulate the loudness anymore because everything is now just loud. So now you've got the itchy shirt, you've got the loud processing,
you
now
got
the lights are too
sensory
bright,
input,
you know?
you've got auditory, you have even just the barrage of information. I know from something we struggle to watch the news because it's just too
A
much.
lot, yeah. Mhm.
Um, so when I had had that diagnosis, I remember, when I was mowing the lawn and, thinking about my kids, and it was just like, this voice is Erin, connect the dots. And it's like, okay, I need to have her formally assessed because even though we'd gotten the ADHD, which no surprise there prior, there was just still things that just were not adding up. All right, I'm noticing a pattern, and there's something that's off in the pattern. Where then, yeah, it was confirmed that yeah, she was autistic too. And then later on in the year's time, both of my boys were also given their autism diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Uh, but prior to just think of there, I remember I was sitting down. I already had my diagnosis. It was summer. It was still summer. The kids had gone already back to school. And I just thought, an impulsive idea just hit me. I was sitting at my computer and I just started writing with an idea and reading to my husband. And I'm like, this would kind of make kind of a nice children's book, because the children's books I know of out there are not like this. Like, this is like, it just seems like I think there's something in the market that's just not there,
Mm-hmm.
that's missing. And I thought, well, maybe I would do illustrations for someone's children's book, because the idea of me writing my own book is like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Well, God has
Little
a
did you
very
know.
interesting sense of humor, but knowing that my ability to write, it was not my strength, that was so far from my brain. And from that, about 2.5 years later, then I had a book in hand, because it was difficult to sometimes be creative, and because I was a glutton for punishment, the book needed to rhyme. People ask, so what's it like being an author and all that? And I said, well, when you are writing and illustrating the book, or if just writing, or if you're working with an illustrator, it's kind of like feeling like you are trying to climb Mount Everest. It's treacherous, it's hard, it's scary. And then you finally do it and you're on top of the mountain and you are just ecstatic. I did it. I did it. And then you realize you have to get back down the mountain. I have to remind myself this was God. It's going to have to be in his time. And believe me, there's some times when I'm just like, what am I doing, God?
I
What am I
think we're
doing?
all doing that.
What am I supposed to be doing? Is this downtime? Is it because you're working on something in the background and there's just, you can't rush it, delay it? And I need to enjoy this. What do I focus on?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't obviously want to take what he's given me and do this and not be a good steward of it and get
Mm-hmm.
lazy and ignore it, or other things that would distract me. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And it's a ministry, but it is a book that really, like, we are wonderfully and beautifully made, and that is going to look different than some other beauty and ways. And I don't want a child who was like me, who dances the beat of a different drum, to think that they are any less than anyone else because they do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
That their method and their ways are just as valid and important as the ways the rest of the world does things. And I go to schools and I'll read the book, and one of the children asked, like, well, why does it say, and that's okay, at the very end? I said, well, because even as adults, sometimes we still need to be reminded of that, and sometimes multiple times, that it is okay. Um, and at the same time, what makes this book unique is that it speaks to two different languages. We have what I'd say neurotypical, meaning that for the most part, you're in the bell curve. You're kind of in the majority. Yeah, there's some things that are differences, but you're not like one of the real outliers. And if you're neurotypical, how you navigate and approach the world, you find a lot of people easily that speak the same way, kind of like a game of telephone. You can talk, and most people understand what you're saying. Communication's not a problem. Well, when you're neurodivergent, you're speaking a different language. And when you're speaking with other people who are neurodivergent, a lot of time the language, we get it. We have no problem.
It's
Well,
very
when you
fast.
come, yes, you're fast, or we get it, or our things, we're not offended, we understand. But then when you have these two different languages playing a game of telephone, that's where the problem, there's the communication, that's where we have the strife, the friction. But I wanted this book to speak two different languages. It needed to speak to those who are neurodivergent, but it also needed to speak to those who are neurotypical,
Mm-hmm.
to understand, to emphasize, and go, oh, okay, that's why you do that. And that, yeah, okay, really, I guess it is important that you do that. And I mean, there's a child who, how many times do you see kids or parents that are saying, you're like, I need you to sit down, I need you to stop talking, or this, or stop bouncing.
Mm-hmm.
And, but there's a reason why that child is because it's regulating. It's the body is telling that by doing this, it's going to help you feel better.
Yep.
But as a parent, you're wondering, like, uh-oh, like even for me, because
Like, why can't you sit still? Why can't you stop talking?
yes, so it just reminds, it's like, all right, the things that, okay, if these kids don't do it this way, that it's all right. It's
And
them.
that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're so, in a world where we have cameras and social media and like everyone's so quick to criticize and what's
What is the feedback that you've gotten from teachers when you've read the book to students? Or, well, number one, how are people finding you and how are you booking these things? And then number two, you said that it's written for neurodivergent and neurotypical. So you probably have feedback from neurodivergent children and teachers and neurotypical children and teachers. And I just wonder if this was eye-opening for them because they didn't have a way of understanding it properly before.
so it's just educating them of what the lens, what the things look like.
Mhm.
And the feedback's been good because, and depending where you live and in the state, special education in public schools is not the same in every and kids at times to be just very less accommodating, especially if they are not exposed to other kids that are like that. And then here comes this other kid and they're very, very passionate and they have a special interest and they just want to dominate conversations because they're very excited and they want to share these things with them.
Yep.
And they're not picking up that the other kid is just not interested or whatever. And then finally, that other they're maybe their patients to find, and then they blow up and they just blow up into the kid.
Mhm.
And then they're just like, what did I do? Like they don't know.
Yep.
Because unless that other child was direct and said, I don't want to talk about this anymore, let's talk about something else, the other one's just going to keep going.
Right.
Because we need more direct, clear communication because it's that
Mhm.
fuzzy and the social cues, the body language, reading. When we're in our moment, it doesn't exist and we struggle. Or if we're trying to learn it, we question if what we're perceiving is right or correct or not.
And then you get in trouble for asking too many questions.
Yeah, I mean, the book, it is a children's book. It speaks to parents, but also it could speak to other family members, relatives, grandparents, members in the community, or if you are in lay leadership and ministry, volunteering, and you work with kids or maybe even adults. This is a book to go, oh, okay, because these things that these kids struggle with, it's not something that we just magically grow out of. Like we can evolve and we can grow, but sometimes we grow, it just gonna grow and there's some there, but it grows and it looks differently as an adult. Um, that it's great for a training tool of when you are working with, especially with more understanding, and the kids that have they're neurodivergent, they could be autism, get ADHD, it could be Tourette's, it could be issues with communication, language differences. It could also stuff that comes from trauma,
Mm-hmm.
complex post-traumatic stress. There are a lot of neglect. There's just so many things that affect of how our brain, how, when we're growing and changing.
And
So
processing.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, of just
So
working with communities.
pie in the sky, dream, what do you want for this book? Like, where do you see the ultimate level of this going?
That's 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 a hard one because there's what I think would maybe be great of what success. There is what God's view of what success is.
True.
And again, some things can align and others are not. But my mission is that there are kids that need this book. They need to read this message. There's adults who need to read this, need this message, whether they are neurodivergent, and they can like go, yeah, I mean, there's something in it for everyone. But as far as success is that, does it get into the hands of the kids that need it the most?
Mhm.
Um, I would love to be invited to speak, to be invited into schools to share, or into churches, congregations, and share my testimony. That this book will take me in places I never would have dreamed that I would ever be at, get to do, be a part of. That experience. Do I want the book to make some money? Of course, just everyone, but it is not my top pillar. It's further on down there. It took some money just to get the book to market.
Mhm.
And if to make your investment costs back, the rest is gravy. And to be able to where I can then take some profit and put there to where books can be donated
Mhm.
to in uh you know counseling offices, schools.
Yeah, I can see this
um
being a very important tool for not only teachers to use, for children, but also you could use it as a tool to bridge the gaps in your workplace because there's
yes.
always a need for understanding and better communication skills. So if people can better understand each other, then they can better communicate, and that would take down a lot of friction for a lot of people in work because I've seen it happen. It makes a difference when people see things from a different point of view. Well,
It's yeah.
Erin, where can people find the book and connect with you online?
First connection goes, I do have a Facebook page and Instagram. There is a YouTube channel where I will post when I do have some specific um, actual animations, but um, it is on Facebook.
You do
So
have a lot of
that's
resources on the Facebook page. Um, what is the if someone wants to find the Facebook group or the page rather, what should they type into Facebook?
it's just, and that's okay. So if you are able to, so Redemption Press is my publisher. If you can purchase my book through them, I'm very grateful for a few things. For one, um, yes, can you find the book on Amazon? Why, yes, you can. However, Amazon is they take 70% profit.
What?
Yes, Amazon is the big brother that you can't afford not to have.
Oh my
But
God,
as far as authors go,
70%.
they take 70% profit,
Yikes.
um, which is difficult for a lot of us, for a lot of times as authors who were not published in the traditional sense through one of like the big five publishing houses.
Hmm.
And even then they illust authors who are go through traditional publishing, have a literary agent, they're only making pennies a book.
Yep.
Um, but so if you go through Redemption Press, that is where you can find my book, and you won't get free shipping, but you will be supporting an author because that is where I get the best profit margin. But I understand money's tight. If you buy through Amazon, leave a review. That reviews are huge in Amazon and helping gravitate traffic to it, sharing, or even if you buy on from Redemption and go on Amazon and leave a review
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
It won't say as a verified purchaser, but if anything, you can read a lot of reviews on Amazon.
And
It
Goodreads, you
is,
can review it on Goodreads. A lot of
yep, you
people.
can review
Yep.
it on Goodreads. Most people, because Goodreads is not super mainstream, not enough people take the time. It's harder. But you can order it through Barnes and Noble, Walmart, they're independent booksellers. There's a lot of different places that you can buy it, um, and find your copy that way. Um,
If people want to hire you or invite you to their class or invite you to their like Bible study group or something, how should they get in touch with you?
if you find on the Facebook page, there is ways to contact me through there. And um, if you're not able to buy the book or other things, just there is such power, and people don't realize that for things in the algorithms and Facebook and social media, that sharing is great, liking, but the ultimate compliment is when you leave a
Comment.
comment
Mhm.
directly on the post page, not on someone's comment. Someone shared the page and you comment on your friends what they shared,
Right, you
but
got to
direct
comment on the original.
those, yeah, that's what then helps bring, so that those who do follow, that my post will show up in their feed.
Yes.
That there are a lot of very, cheap, simple ways to support us, that make it, because I don't have money to pay for Facebook ads.
Well, and I
A
don't
lot of
think
this,
you need Facebook ads. You need word of mouth.
I'm doing this for the good of it. It's difficult when, sometimes I will spend 40 hours making an animation, just drawing the things and then coding it and programming it so that the animations move and the music and sound effects and all that. And you're like, wow, really didn't get viewed at all. And that's,
I know that feeling.
yeah, yeah, it's just, I'm not trying to do it to be famous and rich. I'm just trying to get it out there.
Yeah,
That's really what that calling is. But it is nice to see that people are enjoying it. People, because unless you tell someone, sometimes you never know of just how much they meant to you unless you tell them.
that's very true because a lot of people don't find out until it's too late, you know?
Exactly, exactly. Be autistic and be direct. I want that for you to feel loved, to be seen, to feel loved. We're all going through challenges, whether we know them or not. You
Hmm.
never know what someone is battling with behind closed doors.
I started this podcast is because like I've been in dark places, right? And I don't want anyone to feel like they're alone. And the more that we can talk about how there is light somewhere, you get those moments of clarity, like there's hope. And sometimes things feel hopeless. But I hope with this podcast that we're giving people hope and showing them that different people of different faiths and of different walks of life can come together and have a conversation and appreciate each
Yeah,
other.
different lifestyles, and that's that's you. That's not me. And I'm here. I'm just to control what I have from what I do for me. Um, but there's room for everyone here.
Oh, I
All
like that.
our differences are our commonalities. I'm just trying to follow. So I want this to be of a place that we all have our differences, wired differently, what's going on, and how can I how can I support you? How can I comfortably support you and be open, but not feeling like you have to compromise everything that you hold true.
Very well said, Erin. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you.